He'll likely be on the Zoom right at 3 or 3:01. Yeah. Adam said he'll likely be on the Zoom on 3 or at like 3:01. Just outside the line. Alrighty. How's everyone doing today? Am I good to get started, Wade?
Yeah, go ahead, get started.
Okay, yeah, I think Adam will be hopping on in as shortly as he can. He has something else he's trying to wrap up. I guess I'll ask the first thing, and Coach, I know I already asked you a little about it when I kind of realized, when you told me about it, was the fields, how they can change, based on what stadium you're playing, the dimensions of the fields. So I'm wondering, do you care one way or the other if the field is a few yards longer or a few yards skinnier? Like, I'm sure that you'll come out to play regardless, but do you think one dimension or configuration of the fields benefits your team?
Yeah, I mean, for me, most of the fields are somewhere, the maximum is 80 yards wide by 120 yards long. Most fields that we play on at this level are somewhere between sort of 75 by 115 to 80 by 120. That's the norm. Whenever you get, if something is 74 yards wide or 114, it doesn't make a big difference. But when you start getting into, 72 yards wide instead of 76, and then maybe, 116 instead of 120, that can start making a difference. It just shuts down the amount of space on the field, and it can certainly, if the other team maybe are a little bit more physical, or if they're the underdog and they're trying to close down your space, that can make a little bit of a difference. So, I don't necessarily have a preference. I just know as the field starts getting smaller, it takes away your ability to play pretty attractive soccer. It's more of a more confrontations because there's less space.
Yeah. Hey, can you recall? I don't know if there's like a field that sticks out in your mind. What's kind of the most extreme field that you've ever played on, like dimensions wise? Is there one that sticks out?
Yeah, it used to be Texas Tech, going way, way back. They used to have a field that was inside a track, and the track wasn't the Olympic style track, so it was very narrow. And I don't remember the exact dimensions, but I think 68 yards wide might have been about the maximum.
Wow.
And we played one non-conference game against Xavier up in Cincinnati, and they had a turf field, and it was tiny. I don't know the exact dimensions, but it must have been maybe 66 yards wide, something like that. So that made a huge difference.
Wow. That's crazy. And then I guess the last thing I'll ask on this note is, are there maybe other things that can play a factor on the fields, like maybe the backdrop to the goal? I know when we were watching on the TV, when y'all were playing in Waco, one goal, it backed up to essentially a river. So I'm not sure. Is there any other things besides the field that can make each field to play on a little different?
No, I mean, probably not. Maybe it's the dimensions and maybe the surface. If a field is, if the grass is super long, it can slow the game down drastically. If you're playing on turf, that can obviously change how the game's played a little bit. So I think more the dimensions and the actual surface as opposed to the surroundings would make the biggest difference.
Okay. And switching notes a little bit, a question that I decided to ask you just because I'm, mostly curious about it is kind of the post-game spreads that y'all have. So I guess first off, what did post-game meals look like last season, and how have they changed this year at all due to COVID precautions?
Yeah, I mean, all of our meals now are to go. Pre-game and post-game, they're all individually packaged. That way the kids can go and isolate and eat them by themselves. Because the last thing we want to do is have a group meal, and then 2 days later, one of those kids tests positive, and the 6 kids that were sitting at her table are now primary contacts and they're out. So that's been the biggest change this year on the road and at home. Every meal is just individual for each kid. They take it and either go back to their hotel room, back to their apartment, or they find a spot in the stadium by themselves and they don't get to sit and socialize, which is kind of weird. In years past, our pregame meals, we eat as a team and we all get to hang out and chat a little bit. On the road, we get to go to nice restaurants and get to have nice meals. Well, all that's gone. It's just very individualized, very much here's your meal, take it, get out of here, and go kind of make sure that you're not getting around too many other people.
Yeah. Do y'all have the same food each game, or I don't know if you have a sponsorship, or does it get switched up when you're at home and kind of catering in?
Yeah, at home our pregame meals are done by Cowboy Dining over in the West End Zone, so they supply the pregame meals. Postgame we mix it up. Sometimes we'll get, oh, I don't even know, fuzzies, or another time it might be Nuki, and another time it might be Chipotle, and sometimes Jimmy John's. I mean, we just mix it up that way. Hopefully it doesn't get too stale for the girls. If you have the same thing every single time, I think they get bored with it.
Yeah. Last question. Do you have a favorite meal?
Oh wow, I got a lot of favorite meals. I got to go old school Scottish with some fish and chips. You can't beat some good fish and chips. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, hey, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay, yeah. No, Coach, I was just going to ask you, not about fish and chips. This is about the yellow card that you got last Friday. Can you just walk me through that? What was that? What was that whole thing all about?
Well, we're very limited on how we can't really comment on officiating of the game, and calls and stuff. I can just say that I got a little bit, I guess, emotional. I guess I was told my hands were moving and I was excitable, and so I guess the official wanted me to calm down. I was told my hand gestures were what did it, so we'll leave it at that.
Gotcha. How many cards, I guess, do you average a season, or was this an anomaly?
Well, coming into this year, I hadn't had a yellow card in 4 years. So to get them in back-to-back games, I was really disappointed in myself, first of all. But the honest is, they were both kind of like, what just happened? We got a yellow card. So I was mad at myself for breaking my streak. I'd gone 4 years without one, which I was really proud of. But a yellow card is kind of like a technical. It's just basically saying calm down, and I'll calm down.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. Just like a technical. In basketball, the technical foul immediately you get to shoot free throws. But in soccer, there's no way to just like immediately reward the opponent like that. The yellow card on Friday didn't necessarily like harm anything. Is there a process in your mind where you're kind of like, okay, like I can, try and express my point to this official. I can try and get my team fired up because I know there might not be an immediate repercussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think most coaches in any sport at times they want to get the officials' attention if you feel that you're being wronged. I think it's kind of commonplace, I think, for coaches to do that. But I certainly don't ever go out there to get in trouble or get a caution. But I just felt in that instance that one of my players had been kicked late after the ball, and the officials missed it, and you're just really trying to bring their attention to it. That was about it.
Have you ever, I know this is another thing maybe common in basketball. Have you ever, I guess, tried to get a yellow card to fire your team up, to get some energy on the sideline, to get some energy in the stadium?
Well, I think coaches in basketball, football, soccer, you see it all over the world. I don't think anybody intentionally tries to get, the yellow card in our sport, but there are times that you're trying to get the officials' attention. You saw the TCU bench do it a little bit as well. They were out on the field at one point trying to get his attention. So I think it's kind of common in sports. Like I said, I don't think you necessarily go, okay, I'm going to go get a yellow card, but I do think at times you're just trying to protect your players and bring stuff to your attention. And not unique to me or not unique to soccer. I don't think it's just a part of sports. I think where coaches feel like they can maybe at least help protect their players a little bit.
What's the craziest card you've ever heard of?
Wow. Just trying to think here. There's been many. I mean, I've had a few in playing career and coaching career, and we've had players get ejected, and, we've had players against us get ejected. I guess one time in Oregon, we were playing against the University of Oregon, and one of our players got red carded for kind of swinging, flailing her arm at the other player, and she did. But the opposing player got a yellow card, and she actually yanked our player by the hair. So, clearly the officials saw that and just decided not to do anything. So, we weren't really arguing that our kids shouldn't have got red carded. We were just wondering, how come the other kids is a yellow? And that one kind of stuck with us for a while because we were pretty upset about it.
And just to clarify what you said earlier, you said you had gone like 4 seasons without a yellow card. And did you have 2 in back-to-back games? Maybe I missed one.
Yeah. Baylor, and then this one I got a yellow. So again, it's not something I wanted or proud of. I both of them were kind of like surprising. I think, most of our players and the other team's coaches were like, what was that for? So, but yeah, the last one was like 2016, I think. At the end of the season, I got a yellow card. And at that point, I've made a big commitment to try to do better. And I think I've been doing a lot better on the sideline with interacting with the officials. And in the last 2 weeks, I really didn't feel like I'd been any extra emotional or upset, but for some reason I got dinged. So I'll take it, and I will do better in the next few. I won't, mark my words, I'll probably regret saying this, but I won't get another one the rest of the way.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, Coach. So I was just wondering, coming into this game against Kansas, you're coming off 3 consecutive overtime games. With that being said, in overtime periods, how or do you even change up your strategy or formation or even how do you change up the strategy or formation?
Yeah, I don't think we do. I think our shape is something we've had for the last 3 or 4 years and had a ton of success with it. I think what we're seeing is some other teams are tweaking what they do to deal with us, and we have to get creative within our shape and do better in certain situations. And that's something I addressed with our team. I said we did not do a good enough job of adjusting for TCU within that game, and it's something we'll try to do a better job of moving forward. So what we will see probably moving forward, we're getting healthier. So we have 3 or 4 players that missed about 3 weeks because of COVID issues. They're back, and it's one thing to be back and another thing to be ready to play a Big 12 soccer game. Well, we feel like they're getting real close to being able to contribute now. So I think what we can do to help with those extra minutes is maybe use the bench a little bit more and try to get more minutes. But, whenever you go to the bench to give minutes, it's got to be quality. You can't just put somebody in for the sake of it. They need to perform at a high level. So we're not going to change our shape. We usually tweak things within our shape for each opponent, and we'll continue to do that. But what you might see is a few more faces getting a little bit more time to try to rest some of those kids that are playing high minutes.
And then something I noticed with TCU, TCU scored on their first possession of overtime. I don't even think you guys had an opportunity to possess the ball. With overtime being sudden death, a total of 20 minutes is, say, for each overtime. I mean, there's only 20 minutes, so patience or urgency is key. Is in each overtime game, do you kind of pick either to be patient or to be urgent offensively?
Well, I think part of it depends on how the game's been going. If you've been the aggressor and having the most chances, you're probably coming out with a little bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of energy, and trying to go for it. If you've been hanging on to get to overtime, you might be a little more conservative. We actually try to regroup because we've given up such a late goal. It's mentally kind of tough to come back from that. So we were just trying to get our kids to regroup and refocus and let them know it was okay. And, let's get back to doing some of the things we were doing well. It was unfortunate. The ball actually broke to Grace Yoakum. She tried to play a long ball to Gabriella, and it got intercepted. And from that, there was 3 passes, and then the kid dribbled 30 yards and scored. So, yeah, it's disappointing from our standpoint. We watched video. You have to give their kid credit. She did a really nice job. But from our perspective, we ball watched, and then one of our defenders that closed down the ball could have done a better job denying the shot. And to be fair, Emily probably could have saved it. So, we felt like we had 3 opportunities to not have that goal happen. So we'll do better when faced with that situation, hopefully again. But it was just, once you get into overtime, it's usually one really good play by somebody, one special play, or a mistake. And we feel like we made a mistake, and their kid capitalized on it.
And then thank you. My last question for you is, with COVID, you only have a 9-game regular season, and of course the postseason is delayed. Does a draw kind of stain a little extra because you only have that limited time?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, our goal coming in was to, compete all 9 games. First and foremost, with COVID, get to play all 9 games. That's still our goal. But we'd like to win every game if we can. And now our goal is to win as many as we can. And the way the Big 12 standings are decided in soccer, you get 3 points for a victory, 1 point for a tie, 0 for a loss. So you don't really know until the end of the season if a tie is good or bad. So our tie with Baylor. If that's the 1 point that ends up winning us the league, then it was a good tie. If it was a 2 points drop that ends up causing us the league, then it was a bad tie. So, it's tough to know till the end how that's going to play out. But, from our perspective, we're just looking now. We got Kansas; they're 3-1. We're 3-1-1. If we win, we stay in contention to compete for that Big 12 championship. So that's clearly our goal moving forward. We try to win that game, and if we don't, we go to the next week and try to win as many as we can and go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Of course.
Coach, so last time you guys were in Kansas, it was kind of on unique circumstances. You didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. How does this game differ from that earlier game?
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, obviously, both teams now, ourselves and the Jayhawks, have a week to prepare for each other, so it's different in that aspect. And then secondly, we're just right now we're mid-season and we kind of have our identity a little bit, and so do they. We know what they like to do. They know what we like to do. K-State was just such an unknown for both teams. We just went and played. It was just like, hey, let's roll the ball out and let's go. This game's a little bit more, here's what Kansas do, here's what we're going to do, and we kind of have our substitution patterns already, and both teams are a little bit further along than they would have been 4 weeks ago. So that's probably the biggest difference.
Is there any confidence difference just having all that extra time, or is it sort of just similar for you throughout?
Probably similar for us. I think the players, now that they've got 5 games under their belt, there's probably a level of confidence as far as fitness and what's expected and what the Big 12 games are like. But we're coming off a loss, so no matter who you are, that hurts your confidence a little bit. It kind of can bruise your ego. So we talked with our team really about this game's about how we bounce back. We haven't been beat yet this year, and now we have. So, when you deal with adversity, a lot of times that shows really what kind of team you are. So I would expect this group to bounce back and play very strong on Friday.
And then a lot of the travel that you guys have done, at least more on the recent side of things, you've been traveling a little more. But what similar, like, is there anything that you're doing differently in your traveling this year now since of COVID?
Yeah, just a little bit. Once we get to the hotel, it's pretty much go to your rooms. Don't go to the other girls' rooms and hang out and watch movies or anything, because you just don't want to be dinged as a primary contact if anybody gets sick. Meals, as I said earlier, it's just come grab your meal, go back to your room and eat with your roommate, basically, and that's it. We have rooming lists based on kids who maybe have had COVID or roommates who would be primary contacts already. We have seating assignments on the bus along the same line. So you're just trying to minimize the possibility of number one, contracting the virus, and then number two, spreading it. So it's been a little bit different for all of us on the road. And, it seems to be working so far. We've done a pretty good job of it. So we'll just continue to do those things moving forward.
And then kind of a follow-up on that, has the use of technology improved this year? Has it been more depended on?
A little bit. Obviously we do a lot of messaging with our team on Teamworks, and that's how we communicate with them anyway about the schedules and bus departure times and all that. We've had to coordinate, obviously, all of our testing before we leave. So we have to test Thursday morning before we get on the bus Thursday afternoon. So that's been a little challenging for the medical staff. We're all carrying more disinfectant and things with us, and hand sanitizers and soaps and all that stuff. So, but we always rely on the technology as far as communication and stuff with the team. So that hasn't changed a whole lot.
And then last thing, this was more recent. The rescheduling for the Bedlam game came up. What were your thoughts on that date?
I'm great with it. We're happy to get it on the books. It took a little bit of time. The administrations, the Big 12, and most importantly, the medical staff had to sign off on a date. OU already had a makeup game with Kansas scheduled for that Sunday, so it didn't make sense for them to play on a Friday night. That would be quite unfair for them. So they asked us about Thursday, and we were fine with it. We just had to make sure our medical testing was able to do it, and they can. So we finally got it locked in. And yeah, it's kind of a great way to end the season. Who knows where both teams will be at that point. But, Bedlam always feels like a championship game anyway. So that's kind of a nice way to end the full season.
Thanks, Coach.
Of course.
All righty. We'll get the first player up.
I'll do it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'll let you guys just fire away whenever either Charmé or Olyvia sits down so we can get our time going. So, hello.
All right. Hi, Olyvia.
Hey.
So I have two things I want to ask you about. The first thing was something that I kind of learned a couple weeks ago is how fields in the Big 12, their dimensions can vary a little bit. So the first thing I was wondering is, in high school, obviously you've been a couple years removed from high school now, but was that the case in high school, or did the fields varying a little bit? Was that something you had to adjust to when you got to Oklahoma State?
I think that's been kind of a thing throughout my soccer career, no matter what. Different clubs play at different facilities, and they all do things a little bit differently. You sometimes play on turf, sometimes play on grass, sometimes play on dirt. It really just depends on where you're at and where the games have been scheduled to play. I mean, there are certain complexes that are known for being good complexes and others for not. So it's definitely something that I've experienced through my entire soccer career. So no different being in college.
Can you recall the wackiest field you've played on? Like you said, maybe like a dirt field or one that the grass hadn't quite come in. What was the wackiest field you played on? Do you remember?
I forgot. I think Blue Sky was always a really rough one growing up. It's in like the Dallas area. It was pretty bad, bumpy, not really grass, really hard. I mean, you play on those pretty much at a lot of different complexes. So probably that one, and then yeah, really just ones that are like really hard and bumpy, and then no grass. It just kind of feels like you're running on concrete, and you can't really do anything about it. So definitely something like that.
Yeah. And specifically for your game as a forward, would you rather play on a skinnier field or a wider field? Because Coach told me that when it gets skinnier, everything gets a little more, clustered. And is it harder to find space? Do you prefer?
Oh, for sure. I would definitely prefer to play on a wider field. Just for my game, and I think our team's game altogether, we just play better. We're more expansive because we do have those wide players to use and exploit the other team's wide. So definitely, and it gives you more space in the midfield as well. I mean, even when there's like wider fields, it gives you more space everywhere on the field. And I just think that our team does a better job at playing whenever we have more space.
Yeah, and the last question on this note is, can other things play a factor as well, like maybe the surroundings to the field? I know when I was watching the game in Waco, you're shooting one goal backs up to like a river. So can the surroundings of the field play an impact at all, or are you more focused like, kind of immediately?
I wouldn't say that they really played that big of an impact. I mean, obviously at Baylor there was like a lake, so it did kind of smell kind of weird over there, but it's just one of those things where you're like, yeah, it smells, and then you just like move on, like you acknowledge it, but then you're like, okay, gotta play a soccer game. So that's just kind of like, it is one of those things that you may be like, that's not really how I want my field set up, but whatever, like you move on, you play, and you just have to get through it and play your game. So
all right, and switching gears a little bit, I'll ask you hopefully something that smells a little better. How about that segue? Is the post-game meals that y'all have? Mm-hmm. So, Coach told me that this year post-game meals are a little different because everyone kind of gets their box of food and has to go, eat somewhere alone. How has that been this year?
Honestly, I've kind of enjoyed it. I'm pretty much a pretty independent person, so I do enjoy, social settings and being with my teammates and stuff, but I think especially after a game or before a game when you're just kind of trying to get in the zone, being able just to be by myself is something that I thrive off of. So it doesn't really bother me as much either way.
And do you have a favorite food that maybe gets catered in before games? Is there a food that you especially like, feel like my cousin always say like he never played better than when he had McDonald's before a game. Is that kind of how you felt? Do you have
I mean, I love tropical smoothie. We haven't gotten it yet, but I know we're gonna get it after I think a UT game. I always like sandwiches. They don't bother me, but I like tropical smoothie a lot because like I worked there whenever I lived in the Dallas area, so it's one of my favorite things to have.
Does that fill you up, a smoothie before a game? Or I guess
Oh,
it's
for
after.
sure, for sure.
It
Yeah.
does. All right, that's a good employee vouching for your place of business. Thank you, Olyvia.
Of course.
I'm going to do one quick follow up. I think this might help you as well. Do you know the foods that you're going to get like beforehand? Do they have like a schedule list for what day you're going to get what?
Yeah, so our strength and conditioning coach and medical staff and whoever's really in on kind of figuring out what foods we get, they like send out a TeamWorks form just saying like, this is what you're going to get before the game, this is what you're going to get after the game, and then you just go into the menu and like pick what you want. So it's not really like a set menu, like you don't have to pick from certain options. Obviously, she'll like put in there like, these are the foods you should try to avoid. And then these are the foods that you can have, blah, blah, blah. She like gives you some options, and then you just go in and really pick what you want. So it's really nice to be able to just have your own preferences.
And then I'm going to kind of segue back to a few other. I'm going to go to a few other things. But with the Kansas game coming up this weekend, what has your experience been in the state of Kansas, and what do you expect from this weekend?
Well, this will be my first game at the University of Kansas, so I've never been there, but I have been to Manhattan to play Kansas State, and I've driven through Kansas many times. So, but the places that I've driven through have been pretty vacant. There's not been that many people around, so it's kind of a very country, I guess, type feel in Kansas. Like there's not very many people. But I guess in regards to playing Kansas, we played them at home last year, had a really successful game against them, one of our highest scoring games in the Big 12, played them in the Big 12 tournament semifinals, thought we should have won that game. So I think we should go in obviously confident, but also realizing this is a new year for everyone. It's a different year for everyone, different team, different players. So just kind of focusing on ourselves and focusing on bouncing back from the TCU game and just getting our confidence back.
Now the K-State game, you didn't have a whole lot of prep time. I think it was the day before is when it was scheduled. How does having that extra five or so days to prep for Kansas, like, does that give you extra confidence?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you prep that week for your opponent. We just take like literally the day we get back. So on Monday when we have practice, we talk about the game we previously played and kind of talk about certain things we could have done better, certain things we did well. And then right after that, our minds are focused on the game we have that Friday. So it's really nice to have that prep time. And obviously that wasn't the case for K-State because we were thinking we were going to play OU. But just being able to adapt to certain situations is something that as a player in any sort of sport, you just have to be able to do, especially in the midst of a pandemic in the US. So. And
then one of the other things I was wondering about was you guys have seating charts on your bus when you're going to road games. How have you been able to bond with the rest of the team whenever you're kind of isolated in your own like unique spots?
Well, first, it's actually kind of nice that we have our little assigned seats because you get to have your entire 2 seats to yourself, which is like really nice. And if you want to lay down and sleep, you can do that. Because I know I struggle sleeping just anywhere but my bed to begin with. So being able to have the space has just been easier travel-wise on my body, I think. So that's been a positive. But then honestly, just kind of being crazy in the bus, but also staying in our own little areas is something I feel like we even did a pretty good job at prior to COVID. So sometimes we'll do like certain singing games and kind of just acting all crazy, doing our own thing. But then there's sometimes where there's like an hour or two that goes by that everybody's super quiet, doing their homework, sleeping, just focusing on themselves. So it's just one of those things where you interact when you can and you sleep when you want. So
awesome. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Hey, Olyvia, I'm going to jump right into this one. When was the last time you were awarded a yellow or red card?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. I actually have never gotten a red card ever. And the only times I've ever gotten a yellow card has been talking back to the ref. I've never actually gotten a yellow card for like any sort of crazy play or like sliding into anyone or anything. So I'm not a super aggressive player when it comes to initiating things. Normally I'm the one getting beat up or initiated at. So yeah, I've never actually gotten one for slide tackling into someone, and I don't remember the last time I even got one.
That's actually kind of impressive. Like you can't even like, would it have been in high school, like middle school, maybe?
Maybe high school, but like I said, probably for just talking back to the ref. I do remember like one of them, but it was like 5th grade, like that, and that was just in a game that I said something about a handball. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't gotten one in a long time.
So are you kind of like, are you a person where, you feel embarrassed about that? And it's like you're not proud of those cards at all. Like that's just not you.
I mean, my personality just in general, I'm just not a super aggressive person. Obviously on the field, I'm not crazy aggressive either. I just kind of focus on just playing. Like I don't really care about all the extra stuff and the diving and the hitting each other and all that. I just like to play and get the ball with my feet and get the ball down and just do my job and not really worry about all the extra stuff. So either way, whether I got them or not, it's not that big of a deal to me just in general. I mean, those players that do concede more, I mean, they're just more aggressive than me at the end of the day. So
Yeah, no, and that's what soccer's all about. Thanks,
yeah,
Olyvia.
of course.
Hey, quick question. So coming into this game, you guys are coming off 3 consecutive overtime games. So, each overtime game, especially in the span of, 3 back-to-back, when TCU scored that equalizer and you guys went into overtime, does your mentality kind of change? You're like, oh crap, overtime again, or, overtime, we have another opportunity to win.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you're like, well, we were up the entirety of the game except for the last 3 minutes and we get scored on. And then I think in that specific situation, we were all like, oh crap. I mean, they have the momentum because they just scored a goal and we hadn't scored except for the first half. So I think that was definitely an oh crap moment. But I think in the Baylor and the West Virginia game, obviously overtime is exhausting. You go and you play 90 minutes and you have to play and hopefully not 20 more minutes, but if so, 20 more minutes of soccer, and that can be exhausting. But at the end of the day, you really just focus on winning, so just taking that one special moment or getting that one special play to put the ball in the back of the net or just fighting till the end. So.
And then just one last question, still on the overtime note. So against West Virginia, your patience was key. Your patience is what allowed you to score the goal. Other than that, like in overtime situations, especially as a forward, your job is to score goals. But with 2 10-minute periods, that time can you can either be patient or urgent. Are there situations where you're finding yourself kind of rushing to try to put a shot on net in overtime?
I feel like I rush more in the middle of the game than I do in overtime for some reason. I don't really know why. I feel like I rush myself in the middle of the game more. But obviously, for me, in the West Virginia game, I honestly did not know how much time was left. Like, I really didn't. I wasn't paying attention to it. I knew there wasn't much, but I didn't know there was that little of time. So I think that there's urgency, obviously, to score so that you don't have to play 20 more minutes and so that you can get the win. But I do think that at the same time, if you do try to rush things, then the quality of the game kind of dwindles a little bit and your chances dwindle a little bit with quality. So I think just being patient in moments, but also having an urgency to your game at the same time is really key.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All righty. I think we'll go with Charmé now. Thanks, Olyvia.
Thank you.
For about 6 minutes. So again, you just fire away whenever she sits down so we can get as much out of it as we can.
Hello.
Hi, Charmé. Yeah, I see our timer's ticking down, so I'll hop right into it. The first thing I want to ask you about is kind of something I just learned about, which is how field dimensions can vary among complexes that you play at. So I'm wondering, especially for your game as kind of a defender, would you rather play on a skinnier field or a wider field?
Probably a wide field. Just being a wing back, you just want that more space and just have more ability to play.
And can outside surroundings, maybe like, what's around a stadium have an effect on the game? I know like for Baylor, I was watching on the TV, one end of the field like backed up to a lake, or a river. So do you pay attention to that stuff? Does any of that have an effect on the game at all?
Honestly, no. Usually I try to, keep like a tunnel vision, before games, I usually try to like never even look at the crowds. I don't even look up to like find my mom or anything like that. But I just try to just stay focused on the game and, what's on the field and just, like I said, just the tunnel vision and just be in tune with that.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to ask you about was the kind of the post-game spreads that y'all have. So Coach told me that, before you guys would eat together and, have meals, but now you kind of have to just grab your to-go box and go eat it in isolation. What has that been like?
I mean, it's cool. It's different. I mean, we're eating, so I mean, I don't know. It's pretty much the same. I mean, you just eat and then we go into film and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a favorite food that you get? Maybe something you look forward to after the matches, especially?
After the matches, I don't know. I really like French fries. Oh yeah, I always get Eskimo Joe's cheese fries. Either like the day after, like right after a game. Like we'll probably like leave here at like 9:45 and they close at 10, so I'll just call in my order.
Sweet bacon, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry?
Is it the sweet bacon fries that you go for?
No, I don't eat bacon. I don't eat pork.
Oh.
So I just get plain cheese fries. And
Oh, okay, I got you. Thank you.
I probably eat those like all weekend after.
That's great. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Charmé, I'm wondering, when's the last time you've gotten a yellow or a red card?
Last season. Yeah, I think the last game I got a yellow. I think.
Gotcha. And that's interesting because Olyvia, she said she, couldn't even remember the last time she got one. And I'm wondering, what is Coach Carmichael's reaction to when a player gets a yellow card? Did he say anything to you after that?
No, not really. I mean, he kind of like just knows us as players, and he knows, it's a contact sport, and he always says, whenever he was playing, he was always, very competitive, and he understands, when sometimes you just get a little too physical, it happens, and sometimes yellow cards, it's like bogus stuff, like it's stuff that shouldn't even be yellow, maybe a warning, and sometimes people do go like cleats up or they high balls and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I mean, he definitely understands the game, and sometimes it's just out of your control, and you might just get a little too physical, too involved in the game.
Yeah, and quickly, am I understanding right that your yellow card last season was for like aggressive play?
Probably. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's usually what it is. So yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks, Charmé.
No problem.
Hey, Charmé. So I only have one question for you. What's your favorite memory from playing either at Kansas or at Kansas State, but just in the state of Kansas?
The state of Kansas. I'd say probably. I think the Big 12 tournaments, like the last few years, whenever we did play, like that Plaza area, it was so pretty. But playing at Kansas, I've only played there once. I mean, it's a nice facility. I don't really think there's anything else to it, but that's pretty much it. It's a good field, and we have a good field here too. So I mean, it's kind of the same,
Thank you.
Hey, Charmé, my last quick question. So coming into this game against Kansas, you guys are coming off 3 consecutive overtime games. Each overtime game, does your mentality kind of change as a player?
Like going into overtime?
Yeah, well, and then going into overtime, and then like, for example, with 10 minutes left in the second period, it's still tied. Is there urgency, or are you guys still trying to be patient and kind of play defensively?
I think it's probably a mixture of both. Like definitely, if we're tied, you definitely you want to push numbers up too, but at the same time, like you're trying to prevent getting scored on. So I think it definitely goes both ways. You just have to be smart about when to go and when to hold back and, just, know the right time to release the ball, the right time, making the right decisions and stuff.
Awesome. Thanks.
No problem.
Wow, that was clutch.